in collaboration with several organizations, held a placard demonstration in Mountain Rise in support of Women for Change, a women's shutdown campaign in line with the gender-based violence campaign. That's the news.
Every day, thousands go to bed hungry, but you can change that. With just 10 Rand, you can provide a loaf of bread. This bread is more than just a donation, it is a lifeline for so many families in need. Be part of the Al Ansar Outreach Slice of Life drive today. Call Outreach on 031 208 1601 and make a difference one loaf at a time.
At Pizza Boys Westville and South Beach, Monday Madness. Buy one and get one free. One large creamy chicken or margarita pizzas every Monday in November. In-store specials only. T's and C's apply. Call us now on 031 020 0878. Pizza Boys, we don't cut corners.
Radio Al Ansar.
أحب الوفاء بشتى الصور أحب الوفي الأمين أغر فأهل الوفاء كلون استحاب وحسن الربيع
my laptop
أحب الوفاء بشتى الصور أحب الوفي الأمين فأهل الوفاء كلون استحاب وحسن الربيع
no problem bro, no problem. Okay.
مقامه فوق رأس الجبال وفوق الروابي وعند القمر ويا من تحب غياب الوفاء رأيتك تهوى غياب البصر كم قائل قد أضاعت حياتي وفيا لأجل هناء البشر
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم سيدنا محمد وآله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord, cherisher, nourisher, sustainer and master of the universe, the most gracious, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Ya Allah, it is on you that we worship and it is your guidance that we seek. Ya Allah, keep us on a straight path. Ya Allah, show us with the choice of blessings. Ya Allah, show us with your mercy. Ya Allah, guide us. Greetings, salam, salutations on our beloved Nabi Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It's now 9 minutes past 9 on this beautiful Friday evening, and we welcome you to Let's Chat on Radio Al Ansar with myself, Faizal MJ Suleman. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for joining me on the airwaves of Radio Al Ansar this evening. We will not be broadcasting the Casbah show as we normally do on the Friday night. Buddy Government is not with us, but I'll be continuing with my Let's Chat this tonight and next week. Inshallah, Buddy will join us once again, and we'll continue with the echoes of the Casbah. But right now, we have something that's absolutely important that we want to discuss, and from the soil of a nation that knows the price of justice and power of truth, a bold new people's initiative is born and will launch during South Africa's 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. The People's Truth and Restoration Commission for Palestine, for Sudan, for Congo is organized and supported by activists, lawyers, journalists, artists, and community leaders dedicated to liberation. To discuss this Truth and Restoration Commission, we are honored to have with us Sister Shabnam Palesa Mohamed. And Shabnam Palesa Mohamed is an award-winning activist, a journalist, a lawyer, and public speaker. Shabnam is also a member of the Friends Group, a co-editor of Womandla, and co-founder of the Truth and Restoration Commission. To talk to us about this, we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Shabnam, and thank you for joining me on the program this evening.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Always a pleasure and an honor. Shukran for the opportunity.
The honor is actually mine, but let's get down to business. I introduced, I did say that a new, can I call it commission, if I can call it, is being, established in South Africa. Something that's very vital, something that's very necessary. And to introduce this, I'd like you to just introduce us to the People's TRC, as I put it.
Absolutely, with pleasure. May I just begin by saying that it is a very vibrant night of activism in Durban. First, I went to a talk on Sudan, which included Sheikh Ramadan Ahmed, followed by a screening of Gaza ER with Scene TV's Yusuf Omar. And now we're here in Al Ansar with you. I know sometimes it feels as if Durban is kind of the sleepy hollow compared to Johannesburg and Cape Town, but things are certainly waking up. And of course, the
Undoubtedly.
people's, Alhamdulillah, and the People's TRC, the Truth and Restoration Commission, is certainly part of that awakening and the movement that we're building. So the People's TRC is a movement, an initiative, and a platform to connect struggles around the world that sometimes people may think are actually not connected. With the idea being, you might remember South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, MJ, some time back, post-apartheid, if apartheid ever really ended. And it was an attempt to give a voice to the victims of apartheid, to talk about the
Yep.
horrors they experienced, but also for perpetrators and enablers to testify and ask for amnesty. Now, it may have been a valiant attempt in some ways, but it was also deeply flawed. In that the victims or the families of the victims still don't have reparations out of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And people ask very critical questions about what was the objective. Was it actually some sort of a controlled initiative to make South Africans believe that something tangible was coming out of this effort that was led by government at the time? But we've learned a lot of lessons since then. And largely, South Africans have decided to do the very hard work of living with each other, of engaging in dialogue with each other, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. So it forms part of the inspiration for the Truth and Restoration Commission. So the wording is different. It's not reconciliation, it's restoration, because it's difficult to understand how you get to reconciliation without an effort at restoration. And specifically, at least in the first phase, we'll be focusing on Palestine, Congo, and Sudan. And we're inviting the victims of the genocides in these three parts of our world, the families of victims, witnesses to violence and injustice, as well as experts in these various areas, including healthcare workers, lawyers, so on and so forth, to testify in the People's TRC. It is a people's-led initiative to create a platform that gives a voice to the voiceless, but it also cuts through some of the inaccuracies at one end of the spectrum to the outright lies on the other about what is really going on in these parts of the world. So the people will be able to speak for themselves and say, this is what they've experienced. Of course, in parts of these countries, it's difficult for them to even connect to the internet. So we are encouraging them to send us video testimonies if they feel they will not be able to testify live in the People's TRC. But the idea is to hear their testimonies. The idea is to move towards restorative justice. And we are going to create a space even for the whistleblowers, the perpetrators, the enablers to come forward and tell us the whole truth. Tell us who and what is behind these mass atrocities that are being experienced. But we make no guarantees on behalf of the victims that they're going to get any form of amnesty. No, it is for them to talk about what they're willing to do to seek forgiveness, which is a very different conversation. Of course, the evidence that comes out of this process is going to be extremely important and can be used in various ways, from media content to cases, law cases in national forum as well as international forums. But we plan to also include the arts, MJ, because, I often say the arts is more powerful than politics. And so we'll certainly have art exhibitions from artists in these three regions, as well as poetry. And the last element of what we plan to do for now is trauma therapy. You would, of course, know the enormous trauma being experienced by the people in these regions. It's unfathomable,
Yes.
it's unimaginable. And so we're talking to counselors, NGOs, psychologists who are able to come on board and offer counseling to these people. Naturally, it's not going to be physical, or at least at this stage. It'll probably be online counseling, but that's also a very important part of the work. And I think the art and the trauma therapy is part of what distinguishes the people's TRC from South Africa's TRC.
Now, this is an absolutely mammoth task that you have undertaken. And there has to be some motivation for this particular task. But before we come to the motivation, there's something that's just, I just need clarity on. You spoke of adducing evidence and things like that. Now, is there any legal basis for this? I mean, can you compel me to come and give evidence from a legal point of view?
Absolutely not. It's going to be a voluntary process for survivors, families of victims, witnesses, and experts to participate. And where they say, if they make an allegation against a particular party, they will be able to invite that party to come and testify and speak on their own behalf. But certainly the commission is not going to legally compel anyone to come to that space. It has to be a voluntary process in order for it to have meaning and impact and the chance of creating a world that is based on truth, on justice, and on liberation.
Thank you so much. I come back to my previous question. This is a mammoth task that you guys have undertaken. Now, what is the motivation for the People's TRC?
Because we can't rely solely on governments, which largely are funded by corporations, the oligarchy, the technocracy, who are pulling their strings and making decisions for them. If you think of South Africa, for example, the fact is that we are still sending South African coal that is fueling the genocide in Palestine. If you think about Congo, for example, it is Congolese diamonds that are being extracted by Zionist Israel to then use in funding the genocide in Palestine. Sudan, Zionist Israel, or Zio-imperialism, as I call it, is sending weapons to exacerbate the mass atrocities in Sudan. And so all these struggles are connected. We cannot depend on the government of our country, or any country really, to tell the truth about what is happening, leave alone move to restorative justice and practical recommendations. At the end of the day, it is only the people that can create a more peaceful world. Everyone else has some sort of agenda. And so therefore, this initiative is going to be more than just once off. The second or third phase perhaps will look at other countries where we, the people, need to hear from each other without the filters of governments, corporations, and captured media. So we intend to open up that space then to countries like Venezuela, which is on the brink of facing a Zio-imperialist attack and or invasion. Somalia, Yemen, Cuba, Nigeria, of course, as well, where there is a concerted effort to divide and conquer Nigerians who already have their own challenges. But in an effort to split the country, divide and conquer, create Bantustans, and steal their resources. Nigeria is a powerhouse on the African continent, like South Africa. And so we want the people, even in Nigeria, to come to the TRC and tell us what's really going on. And through that process, realize actually, we have to unite against the common enemy that is benefiting from our division. And that's what makes this process so powerful.
Thank you, Shabnam. Just remind our listeners, this is an interactive program. If you have any comments, any questions, you may forward it to us via WhatsApp on 060-904-1056. That's 060-904-1056. We're going to take a short ad break. We'll continue after this. Shabnam, do stay with us.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Ansar.
One child, one dream.
A journey with Africa Muslims Agency that began 3 years ago has changed the lives of Syrian and Palestinian refugee children beyond their dreams. Help them to continue their education by sponsoring a student at the Amman School of Excellence in Lebanon for 25,200 Rand per year. Education at Amman can provide a brighter future for refugee families.
AMA, empowering, educating, inspiring.
At Pizza Boys Westville and South Beach, Monday Madness. Buy one and get one free. One large creamy chicken or margarita pizzas every Monday in November. In-store specials only. T's and C's apply. Call us now on 031-020-0878. Pizza Boys, we don't cut corners.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg, 105.6 FM.
You're listening to Let's Chat on Radio Ansar with myself, Faizal MJ Suleman. We are speaking to Shabnam, Palesa, Mohamed, and we are discussing the Truth and Restoration Commission. Shabnam, what relationship is there between South Africa's TRC and the People's TRC?
Well, you might remember South Africa's TRC came out of a negotiated settlement, essentially, where the apartheid government could no longer sustain the trauma it was imposing on people of color in our country. And it was an effort at inviting victims to testify and inviting perpetrators to request amnesty, of which there were about 7,000 applications. Not all of which have been processed, but more importantly, reparations. That process has never really happened as well. And so you might remember that iconic moment of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu sobbing, hearing the stories of the suffering that people of color experienced in our country. And much of that is actually still unknown. I mean, all these years later, today at the Sudan event, I asked how many people remember or are familiar with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We had a couple of hands up, but of course, a large number of the attendees are Sudanese, and maybe they don't know they arrived in South Africa after that moment in time. And so I think it's important to interrogate the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. To what extent has it been successful? I mean, we still have like the Cradock 4, for example, no justice, no accountability, so many cases like these where we actually don't know what happened. And there's a lack of political will or even interest from our government to actually help us understand what happened. And you would also remember this. Now, this then draws a parallel, MJ, to the fact that a dossier of 77 South Africans who went to go and commit genocide in the IOF, that whole dossier of investigative evidence on who they are and what they did, was handed over to the National Prosecuting Authority. My apologies. And to date, there has been no investigation. Or perhaps there's been a veneer of investigation, but there's been no outcomes. And I believe this dossier may have been submitted at least a year ago by one of the strongest Palestine solidarity organizations or movements in the country. And my realization is that we may have submitted a dossier of 77, but there's potentially hundreds, if not thousands of them, criminals really, walking amongst us in our communities, in our neighborhoods, interacting with our children. And there's no response from government or from the National Prosecuting Authority. So it's very interesting to see what's happening in the various commissions that are gripping the country's attention right now. But we have no justice. And so therefore, we as the people, we have to realize that the power of the people is greater than people in power.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate if you take the Cradock 4, for example, which you mentioned. The problem is that every time it is set down, it keeps on being postponed because the state doesn't have it. We have witnesses or somebody's unwell, and this goes on and on and on. And my thoughts are that they're waiting because most of the people that are involved are quite old right now, and they're probably waiting for our time, and they're going to die, and this is going to die natural death, unfortunately. So we're not going to get to the bottom of it. And that's where I think the problem lies. Now, having said that, coming back to our discussion, what relationship is there between South Africa? Why is the focus on Palestine, Sudan, and Congo? I mean, why these countries in particular?
Well, of course, we know South Africa took Palestine's case to the International Court of Justice. And as a people, we've long held a relationship with the people of Palestine who were there for us during apartheid and whose suffering, Desmond Tutu himself said, the Arch said, is worse than what we experienced in South Africa under apartheid. And so they're experiencing occupation, apartheid, and genocide, which they've experienced since at least 1917. History didn't begin in 2023 or even in 1948, but in 1917, the Balfour Declaration. And so Palestine is a litmus test for us because what they're doing in Palestine, they plan to do to the rest of the world. And I'm not just talking about Greater Israel, I'm talking about the whole world. Practically every country is occupied by Zio imperialism. The Glencore coal and the NPA cases not being prosecuted are fine examples of that. I mean, it's blatantly obvious. But the reason why we must also focus on Sudan and Congo is because equally there are mass atrocities happening in these countries. And the world just doesn't know. Most of the people don't know. I do see a concerted effort, especially amongst young people, to draw attention to what is also happening in Sudan and Congo. A week or two ago, we had a group of Sudanese sisters also hosted here in Durban to talk about what's happening in Al Fashir, but also taking us back to Khartoum and to Darfur. Very powerful experience. And they need to be seen as well. I mean, we are Africans living on the African continent. And so therefore, from a position of Ubuntu, I am because you are, basic humanness. But in addition to that, strategically, solidarity makes us stronger. And thirdly, the profiteers, those who are benefiting from the suffering in these three parts of the world, are the common enemies. If you look at the boycott lists that are coming out, right at the top from the BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, to the weapons companies, the oil companies, the fast food companies, the technology companies, it's exactly the same perpetrators. They're doing the same thing in these three countries, but also in other parts of the world. And so therefore, it is incredibly important to connect these three countries in the first phase of the People's TRC. And for South Africa in particular, I think we must also remember that in 2010, Israel, I never call it the state of Israel. I don't believe a state of Israel actually exists. I mean, we've got to be realistic about it and use the right terminology. Stole. It is a settler colonial project, but they stole in 2010 blueprints for missile technology from South Africa. MJ. The story was, I mean, the case was never investigated. Nobody was prosecuted. So they operate with absolute impunity and arrogance in our country. Yesterday, or the day before, there was a mural for Palestine of the word genocide included in that mural being painted in Johannesburg. And here's JMPD. I mean, I saw a small section of that clip where he basically starts off by saying he also found it offensive. What does the law have to do with your feelings and whether you're offended as an officer of the law? It's strictly about the law. And in international law, it's very clear that Israel is committing a genocide and has been doing so for at least 77 years. And so international law cannot now be subservient to your local municipality. But it's not about the law. The way he came across in that conversation, one, there's bias, there's no objectivity, it's about his feelings. Secondly, he's making up things as he goes along. Thirdly, trying to intimidate them with a 5,000 rand fine. If I was there, I would have said, we'll accept it and we'll see you in court, because that's what we need to do. We need to challenge them. But also the point he made about we're no longer a race-based country. I'm thinking, what does that have to do with genocide? Precisely. But that kind of narrative is coming through from your Afri forums and Solidarities and those kind of groupings that are stirring race-based issues in our country, the likes of which we saw perpetrated by Bal Pottinger, right? And that whole episode. So we are in a very precarious time with the G20 at which you and I don't have a seat at the table. And there's all these efforts to suppress our right to freedom of expression, but it is a test for us. And I do hope that the artists involved, they take that matter on because it's critical. But no one is going to stop us from speaking at the People's Truth and Restoration Commission. Our truths will be heard. Our tears will be seen. Our artists' work will also be seen and displayed to the entire world. And we will have a space for trauma therapy. You know, when I think about the trauma, and I'm sure you probably agree, MJ, that we were experiencing secondary trauma and still are through watching the atrocities in Palestine, Sudan, and Congo. Absolutely. From the bombings to the sniper killings, to people being burned, to the starvation, to the poverty, you know, and I've never forgotten Hind Rajab. I don't think anyone can. In fact, last year, as part of our 16 days campaign, which is 16 days 365, we hosted a campaign called Paint the Silence, largely based on the arts, the visual arts, poetry, etc. And one of my installations was I took a mannequin of a child's body and we spray painted it blood red.
Okay.
And then I filled it with 355 bullets and sprayed those blood red. And it was a very painful process to go through, to think about 355 bullets being fired into this child. What was left of her? And then we took it to our events during those 16 days and left it on a desk with a sign there saying, pick her up. And people that did it and know the story of Hind Rajab, the emotion that hit them, the weight of that body is something that we have to remember, but it is also a trauma that we need to deal with so that we can stand up for each other anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. In fact, I had interviewed many psychologists, etc., during this period, and they had many patients who they had to deal with who were seriously traumatized by these videos and these pictures that they were seeing. So it was, it was quite traumatic, the entire episode. Now, will the PTRC focus on other countries or issues?
Absolutely. So just as I was leaving the Sudan event earlier, a gentleman came running out and he said, what about Kashmir? Are you going to include Kashmir? Look, I think all things are possible if people come together and we work together and we make this happen. I don't want to be seen as the leader. I don't want any one organization to be the leading organization. It's all of us. And that's how we fail when we create those hierarchies. And there's, ego and politics and all of that. So this is very different. It's for all of us to get involved to help make this happen. And all things are possible. So, of course, we want to focus on Kashmir, Venezuela, Cuba, Somalia, Yemen, Nigeria. But we had to sort of think, given where we are now, we want to launch, of course, and we'll get to that later. But once we do, we need to then host physical hearings. How are we going to do that? Let's assume we do them in Durban, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. That's the plan. And then as we grow the movement and the initiative, we'll be able to host hearings in other parts of Africa and then other parts of the global majority, otherwise known as the Global South, and then together with our allies in other parts of the world. So we would invite partner organizations who want to host a TRC to speak with us, to tell us what topic they want to focus on, or is it a specific country? And we would work together so that they're able to do this very important work in our lifetime. So that's the vision that we have. So we're not going to stop at any one country or any one genocide. We're also planning on hosting TRC, people's TRC on specific issues, MJ, such as gender-based violence. There's enormous frustration and anger and grief in this country at the attitude not only of government, but also of our own communities who refuse to face this war on us as human beings, as insan. And so therefore, we also need a Truth and Restoration Commission on gender-based violence. On what are the challenges? What are the obstacles? Who is benefiting from looking the other way? What happened when you approached government with a solid proposal and said, I have these ideas. This is what we can do. It will work. And government said, no, we're not going to support this initiative. So apart from genocide, wars, and conflict, we're also going to focus on serious social issues such as gender-based violence, poverty, and xenophobia.
There's a listener that sent a WhatsApp message. Salams, kindly request contact details of your guest read, the People's TRC. We're interested. So I'm not sure if during the course of the program, share some details, for our listeners, if they want to contact the TRC, who do they contact, if they want to participate, contribute, what's the procedure. But I think during the course of the program, you can probably share that with us. Now, when will the PTRC launch, and what is the launch program?
So we're planning to launch, inshallah, on the 6th or the 7th of December, which is part of the 16 days of activism, again, which should be 365 against, for nonviolence against women and children. And we'll have the first launch in Durban, followed by launches in Johannesburg and Cape Town, potentially also in December, because we want to go full swing with the hearings from January. And we want everyone to come to all the hearings, not just come to the Palestine hearings and then not participate in the hearings on Sudan and Congo. So we're going to think carefully around how we're going to structure it so that we have maximum impact and maximum solidarity. The launch is going to include an introduction to the TRC. What is the vision? What are the objectives? What is the process? How people can get involved? And of course, we intend on inviting some notable activists to participate in that launch. So watch this space, inshallah. And then, of course, we're going to introduce the War Trauma Therapy Program and how that will work. And also, again, invite trauma counselors and psychologists to contribute their skills in offering war trauma therapy to victims and survivors, whether they're children or they're adults. And art will play a huge role in that trauma therapy. We've seen the effects of art in the various programs we hold in dealing with, for example, GBV and child abuse. Thirdly, we're going to have an art exhibition, which is going to bring forward art from Palestine, from Sudan, and from Congo, visual art, but of course, we're open to photography and film as well. And lastly, it's going to include poetry or spoken word, which is very popular, including here in Durban. One of the poems that I think we're planning on featuring is by Rafif Ziadeh, which I think she delivered maybe 10 years ago, called We Teach Life, Sir. But we also have Congolese students that have passed through the art school of Dr. Nanda Subban, who is a prolific artist, humanitarian activist, etc. in South Africa. And so we're going to include art from the Congolese and Sudanese people as well as part of this process. Art as testimony, poetry as witness. So that is the program, inshallah, and all support is more than welcome.
And I think $1 million question was asked previously as well. How can people participate and support the People's TRC?
Good question. So inshallah, we will have the website up in the next couple of days. You know, we're doing things on a little to no budget basis at this stage, but with conviction in our hearts, with belief in why we're doing this. So we should have the website up in a couple of days. And there will be sections on the website where people who want to testify, again, whether they're the families of victims, survivors, allies, and experts, will be able to click on that form and fill it in to apply to become someone who testifies at the People's TRC. But there's other ways for people to get involved as well, for media platforms such as Al Ansar to live stream the broadcasts, as well as influencers of note to change makers, activists, etc., to live stream on their various platforms, but also to contribute to the essentials such as a venue, a space to hold the hearings, refreshments that might be necessary, or cover the costs of an expert witness that we need but cannot get there on their own. Yes, of course, we can host people online via this amazing technology that we have, but there's something about hearing a testimony in person that is exceptionally powerful. So on the website, people will see the different ways in which they can actually get involved. Maybe sponsor billboards about the People's TRC, help spread the word so that it becomes a movement that lasts longer than we will.
No, absolutely. And I'm actually looking forward to these hearings. I'm looking forward to the launch as well. And I'm sure it's going to be very successful, because I think we need we need that. We need that, and we need this awareness, because for the last, I don't know how long, our focus has been on Gaza. We completely forgot Sudan. Kashmir is now just, we put it in the back burner. And Congo, nobody even bothered what's going on. And yet, this genocide, we can put it that way, is happening all over. So I know I must compliment whoever's idea it was on this initiative. And I'm sure it's going to be successful. Shabnam, we need to take an ad break again. We'll continue after this, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Durban Halal Meats, the butcher with a twist. Whether you're firing up the braai or stocking up for your business, we've got you covered. From premium lamb, beef and chicken to custom cuts and bulk orders, all 100% halal certified by Sanha. Enjoy our convenient buy and braai service, fast delivery and easy online ordering at durbanhalalmeats.co.za. Visit us at 84 Felix Dlamini Road, Durban Halal Meats. Quality, affordability, trust. Meat made better.
Durban, get ready for something fresh. Wednesday, 26 November, the Culinarium opens its brand new store at Musgrove Centre. Step into a world of premium kitchenware, home essentials, appliances, gadgets, and so much more, all crafted to elevate your cooking experience. And to celebrate the grand opening, we're dropping exclusive opening specials you won't want to miss. Whether you're a home chef, foodie, baker, or love stylish living, the Culinarium Musgrave has something waiting for you. Join us Wednesday, 26 November for the official grand opening. The Culinarium, where great kitchens begin.
Color your world with Color Trade Paints. Color Trade Paints, stockers of interior and exterior coatings. We got you covered with our wide range of roof colors and are stockers of industrial floor coatings. A Color Trade innovation, the 4-in-1 primer must always be your first choice. Magic Cover PVA, 99 Rand per 5 liters. Peach, cream or white. Restore your driveway with high durability jet black tar coat, 690 rands per 20 liters. Get to a Color Trade paint store near you or visit our e-store. Call 086 126 8888 for free delivery. Make the right paint choice. Always ensure color before trade. Buy Color Trade paints.
Plan your dream holiday with the specialist World of Travel, as we pride ourselves in offering you the best in Hajj and Umrah. We also offer travel packages to the Middle East, Far East, and many more exotic destinations. Call our professional travel consultants now on 031 20 888877 or view our website www.worldoftravel.co.za. Visit us at 44 Crescent Street as memorable journeys begin with World of Travel by Irshad Malik.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Do you have abayas, samiras, scarves, kitchenware, games, toys, furniture, or small appliances maybe that you're not using? Why not donate to Declutter? The Pietermaritzburg Muslim Women's Organization, together with the Al Ansar Foundation, are asking you to donate your unused but reusable items for their annual jumble sale. Drop out your item at Al Ansar offices at 207 West Road, Overport, or the Al Ansar offices in Pietermaritzburg at 240 Ortman Road. Drop-offs run until the 24th of November 2025. Let's get together and declutter for a cause. The jumble sale, making a difference in Pietermaritzburg.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Al Ansar.
Let's chat on Radio Al Ansar, and we're discussing the People's Truth and the People's Truth and Restoration Commission, and our special guest is Sister Shabnam Palesa Mohamed, an award-winning activist, journalist, lawyer, and public speaker, and she's talking to us about the new organization, the new commission that is being formed. Now, Shabnam, this initiative sounds like the beginning of a meaningful and impactful movement rooted in people power. What's your thoughts on this, please?
Absolutely. You know, we firmly believe that an injustice to one is an injustice for all. And this is a people-led tribunal of conscience. So it is built upon international law, but it is also based on basic human rights law. It is based on arriving at peace by unearthing the full truth of human suffering, to give a voice to the voiceless, to chart a path towards restorative justice and meaningful accountability, which is why we're also going to invite and welcome perpetrators and whistleblowers to participate as well. But of course, there will be terms and conditions. We who have known apartheid, MJ, we can't stay silent when genocide is being live streamed to the world. Whether that is Palestine, Sudan, or Congo, our own history teaches us that silence is a weapon of the oppressor. And so therefore, the TRC is our collective refusal to be silent. It is an act of radical hope grounded in the moral authority of the people, who are not sitting and waiting for government to do something, who are not sitting and waiting and wondering why we don't know what's happening in other parts of the world. We will also be able to uncover why media behaves the way that it does. Should we be trusting the media when many of the media houses, especially internationally, are owned by a select group who have a particular agenda to push? If you look at the New York Times, for example, one of their columnists was exposed recently for all these headlines he's been pushing for the last 20 years, advocating for war, and most recently calling for the overthrow of Maduro. This is the kind of world that they want. And so this is not media. This is the propaganda arm of the military-industrial complex. So when we, the people, take back our power and host our own platforms where we speak our truths, where we hear each other, where we decide what is the way forward in terms of restorative justice, how do we find liberation, how do we decolonize the way that we think that it is okay to build a Riviera in Gaza on the bones and the blood of babies? How do we shatter those ways of thinking and make the oligarchy irrelevant? And how do we achieve a world that is truly peaceful? What does peace mean? Is there peace without justice and liberation? So these are some of the questions we'll be talking about. And we will have not only hearings, but also panel discussions and dialogues and film screenings as part of the entire process. There's a film called Remember Us, Sudan, Remember Us, that will also be screened as part of our process. And on an average day, say it is a Saturday where we're having hearings, initially we thought we would host 1 week in Palestine, 1 week in Sudan, 1 week Congo, and then the following week now working to package all of this content. And so therefore your listeners and viewers who are able to support us in terms of video editing and graphic design, please do reach out. But in order for us to have maximum impact, what we have to do on that Saturday is to have all 3 sessions, Palestine, Sudan, Congo, or Congo, Palestine, Sudan, but not relegate them to another week where people may not come. This is the honest reality, right? So we've got to reframe how we do things and give all of these issues equal importance. You know, the Palestinians themselves are very clear, MJ. They say they're standing with Sudan. They're standing with Congo. They say it themselves. And at this event with Sudanese sisters a couple of weeks ago, they're standing with Gaza. They said it. So it's up to us to reflect the solidarity that these people understand because they know what they're going through and they can recognize it in each other. So indeed, we are building a people-powered movement where humanity must always rise.
Thank you for that, Shabnam. There's a question that come from one of the listeners. Can your excellent topic, he says, and can your guest just appraise us a little on the situation in Sudan and situation in Congo, as all our, our efforts have been on Palestine, and we seem to have overlooked Congo and Sudan. Just a short introduction.
Of course, thank you for the question and for the support. These are very complex topics, and I prefer to let a Sudanese or a Congolese person speak for themselves. I've been hosting meetings and events online, inviting speakers to speak from those countries. In fact, last week, we had a video journalist from Congo in one of our groups called SAMEC Alliance. So SAMEC stands for South America, Africa, Asia, Middle East, and the Caribbean. The focus is on human rights, solidarity, prosperity, and peace. So we invited this Congolese journalist to come and tell us what is happening on the ground. Where is this conflict coming from? What is the impact on the people? Who is benefiting? And how we can support. And he too, Mzi, was also talking about the trauma, the enormous trauma. In fact, he started an organization to try and help the orphans of Congo. But Congo's conflict is essentially rooted in the fact that it is blessed or cursed with immense resources. Cell phones, computers, etc., the materials to make them, it's coming from Congo. right?
Okay.
Congo also has diamonds, and now you have Israeli billionaires capturing the country via its political leadership to extract all those diamonds and use it to fund a genocide. In fact, when I was in Japan last year, I got to engage at various events with Japanese people, and it was deeply emotional because I remembered that the uranium that was used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki was extracted from Congo.
Okay.
So our people are intrinsically connected with each other, and we must have a fierce loyalty and a sense of protection towards each other. But again, I would rely on experts who live in those countries to tell those stories. But Congo, like Sudan, is about the resources. Sudan is also blessed and cursed with immense resources, including gold. And we know the perpetrators that are being pointed out include not only is not real, but also the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. And of course, the US, it goes without saying, the military industrial complex, the private mercenaries or private security, and so on and so forth. And so therefore, as an effort to displace people away from where the resources are, like Gaza, for example, is in close proximity to trillions worth of natural gas. So forget what you hear about religion and all of that. Just try and put that in the background for now and think about what is the real motive? How can they get to that gas? The only way in their psychotic minds is to terrorize the people so much that they leave. And then they have open access to the natural gas, to the proximity, the beautiful ocean, the trade routes. And it's similarly with Sudan, proximity to the Nile, of course, the river, the Red Sea, so on and so forth. And so these are the various agendas that are actually at play. And we have to become unapologetic at calling out the profiteers and the enablers. You know, when I spoke in Germany 2 years back, I think it was, at the commemoration of Nuremberg 75, I asked them after I spoke whether they would stand with the people of Africa, because that's what it needs to be. It shouldn't be a case of, oh, that's too far away. That's what privilege is. Doesn't concern me because it doesn't affect me, right? And that's how genocides get imported. Those same patterns, the same IOF is being trained in the US, and then US police officers, if you can call them that, going into is not real and getting training there. Similarly here, there's all sorts of skullduggery. We need to do another show on security threats facing South Africa, because they certainly are extensive. But I would encourage your listeners and your viewers to follow me or us on various platforms so you can participate at these events at which we invite people who live in these countries to tell their stories. And more importantly, what you can do to help them.
I think that's absolutely vital. Now, Shabnam, what is your message to the people of Palestine, Sudan, Congo, or anywhere there's injustice, even in South Africa?
You are not alone. I think that is the most important message. You know, speaking at the Sudanese event a couple of weeks ago, the ladies' event, which was hosted by our colleagues at Salam Media, the third speaker, the young lady, she wasn't actually on the program, but she was invited at the last minute, and so she spoke. You know, MJ, she could not even get the words out because the emotion welled up and the tears came out. And she's young. She's younger than the other two speakers. And I couldn't sit there. I had to wake up and go and hold her and say to her that you are not alone. And that is my message to the people of Palestine, Congo, Sudan, Nigeria, Yemen, anywhere in the world that is suffering through injustice, oppression, occupation, neo-colonization, imperialism, any forms of suffering, fascism, racism, that you are not alone. That an injury to one is an injury to all, that your life does matter. And I know it seems hard sometimes. It feels like the world is not listening. They've just moved on, and you might become part of the history books. I remember when October 7, 2023, not 1917, happened, I remember exactly where I was, MJ. I don't know if you recall that moment when you just heard about it, or where you heard that.
Yes.
I was at home.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I remember it very clearly. I just had gotten off a show, Sunday morning show, and we got the message. And then all sorts of messages going around. You know, I recall it very well, yeah. And then there was lots of speculation as well.
Exactly. And so I was at home with my family, and I just broke down sobbing because I said to myself, this is the end of Palestine. This is
Yep.
the end of Palestine. And I knew for a fact that so much about that story made absolutely no sense from the get-go, right? It's the same about
Yeah.
9/11, so on and so forth. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
immediately these red flags start popping up. But I just broke down in tears, and I went to my father for comfort, and I just cried and cried and cried. And I said, this is the end of Palestine.
Mhm.
And there's a book actually called Womandla that we published in South Africa. It's called Women Power. 5 co-editors, including myself and coordinator of the People's TRC, Aisha Mponda Kilumbilo. And there's a poem in here. It's in English and isiZulu that I wrote called There Once Was a Land Called Palestine. This was 2021. The writing was already on the wall. And I have to ask myself sometimes, how did we let it get this far? The Global Sumud Flotilla, for example, powerful example of humanity standing up and proving that what do we need governments for? We need to save each other. We cannot wait for governments to do this. They will not do it. Many of them are actually accomplices and culprits that are exposed in the Epstein files. And Epstein is not the only one to have been running these human trafficking, pedophilia, and sexual abuse entrapment circles, but they willingly participate. And so because of blackmail, bribery, or intimidation, they're not going to act, or they're only going to do so much so that they keep the population calm and under control and the illusion that something is happening, right? And so therefore it is up to us to stand up and do something for each other, whether that's starting a soup kitchen to help the homeless in our country, of which there are so many in Durban, right? Homeless people. And I asked my brother the other day, we were passing yet another homeless person. We tried to help. I said, can you imagine what it feels like to be a homeless person? Can you imagine that level of depression that nobody cares whether you live or die?
Absolutely.
But I also remember asking this question of Aisha at last year's 16 Days, Paint the Silence. How the land issue comes across very clearly on Palestine. How is it that we don't understand as South Africans the land issue of South Africans? How do we not understand? We understand why land is important for Palestine, but we don't understand why land is important for Black African people, for example. Or the struggles of the Khoisan in the Western Cape. I mean, properties are being bought up. They cannot afford. The billionaire class is buying up everything. Amazon is stealing land and allowed to get away with it by the so-called justice system. And perhaps that will also be a part of the People's TRC, how Amazon got to steal that land. And so ultimately, really, it is up to us to stand up for each other. Nobody else, no one's going to save us. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
No, I think, as I say, I must commend yourself and your team on this, on this task that you guys have undertaken. And I'm sure, absolutely sure, that it's going to be successful, because this is something that I don't think has been undertaken in the past. I mean, forget the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but something of this nature, by let's call it by the civil society. I don't think it's been really, taken up. So I'm sure it's going to be very successful, and I wish you guys well. I say, any support that you require from the Al Ansar Foundation or Radio Al Ansar, we will give you whatever support you require as well. Because, I believe that this is a very noble task. Shabnam, I want to thank you for joining me in the program this evening and for having shared that thought with us. But there's lots more to discuss, and I'm sure there'll be future programs where we will discuss other issues as well. So,
absolutely,
once again,
so grateful. So grateful to you for this opportunity. And if people want to reach out and support the People's TRC, they can email peoplestrc@proton.me. And Jazakallah khair to you as well as to Radio Al Ansar for everything you do for the sake of humanity.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Shabnam.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We spoke to Shabnam Palesa Mohammed. She spoke to us about the Truth and Restoration Commission that is being formed, and it's something that we should all take interest in. I want to thank you all for having tuned into Radio Al Ansar. And the next program you're going to be listening to is Ikra Wafam, which is a tafsir of the Holy Quran, with hosted by Brother A.K. Mohammed, and he'll have one of the alims that will be doing the necessary translation. Necessary discourse for us. Mondley, thank you very much for having having engineered this program, for the job very well done. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, inshallah ta'ala, on Rise and Shine. So till then, for myself, Faizal MJ Suleman, have a wonderful evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
كلام السحاب وحسن الربيع وماء المطر